Halloween time, controllers in hand as we dive into worlds so spooky and grand. Silent Hill's fog might give quite a chill, while Resident Evil, that's nightmare fuel still. Outlast keeps us all hiding in fear and dead space, no sounds in space. But we here. Games scare, but we play them fearless. Welcome to the Gamersician's horror game tier list. Ha 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 ha. Ah ha ha ha. Ah ha ha.
Listen, guys, I love summer. I love hot weather. I love the beach. I love being able to go out and have some drinks with friends. I love all that shit. But my favorite season is upon us. Fall. I love fall for many reasons. I was born in the fall. The leaves and the weather changing is a big part. I can have a pumpkin spice cold brew. Yes. I'm basically all those memes about girls named Braylon, Kaylin, and Jalen, but more than anything, as the weather gets colder, as the leaves start to fall, and the days get shorter, I start to consume more and more scary media. Spooky season is upon us, and it is my absolute favorite time of the year. And with that, I start consuming a lot of scary video games. So I thought it'd be cool to sit here and talk to you guys a little bit about some of my favorite horror game franchises of all time and a few that I've never played, and get into spooky season the right way. Now, if you enjoy this type of content, make sure you let me know with a like, a share, and a subscribe. And yeah, let's just get right into this. So right out the gate, you'll see that we have a few different tiers here. First up, we got spooky. Now this is S tier, and with spooky, these are the cream of the crop. These will make you fill your pants. These will have you terrified, screaming out of your mind, and just really enjoying the game. They are the best of the best. Next up after that, we have alarming. Yes, you will notice a naming trend. And with alarming games, they are really great. They are incredible games, but maybe have one or two things that kind of hold it back from being the absolute best. Maybe they're not scary enough. Maybe the gameplay is lacking, or some aspect is just a little out of place. Still worth your time, of course. Bloody good. Now we're talking about solid games. These games will spook you. They'll frighten you. They'll maybe get under your skin a little bit, but they've got a few different little, niggling issues that are holding them back. So still great games. Definitely worth playing. Candy corn is where it's at because I needed a good C. And honestly, if you want to know what I feel about candy corn, go watch the Lewis Black clip about candy corn. They fucking suck, all right? But for this tier list, candy corn is gonna simply mean middle of the pack. I'm sure some of you probably feel that way about candy corn. Yeah, like it's just an average candy. Nothing too terrible, nothing outstanding. Well, there might be a couple outstanding aspects to these games, but overall just solid, and worth playing if you're really looking for something to terrify you just a little bit. Damned, this is where it starts falling off the cliff. This is where, you might as well just start burying these games because they could have some redeeming qualities, but unless you're really scraping the bottom of the barrel for games to play, Damned is not the place to be, all right? Ew, gross. Don't touch these unless you are a masochist, and I know some of y'all are, because honestly I enjoy Troll 2 just as much as the next person, but is it good? Well, yeah, it is, but some of these games might be good, like so bad they're good. So let's just go ahead and get right into this. So first up, hard to start out much better than this. We have one of the most legendary games franchises of all time, not just horror, one of the most legendary game franchises, period. and that is Resident Evil. Now, what can one say about Resident Evil that hasn't already been said? It's one of the most iconic, one of the most legendary, one of the most important game franchises ever made. And with Resident Evil, I didn't start out with the first one, really. I was about 10 years old in 96, maybe 9. But anyway, I didn't quite get to the first Resident Evil. I remember seeing some older friends play it and thinking it was terrifying. That dog jumping through the window probably lives on in many people's minds forever. But I really started with Resident Evil 2, and my brother would always be Leon and I would always be Claire, and we always would kind of swap info. I preferred Claire because I loved the grenade rounds, and it kind of added like almost an RPG element to it. Like, what type of round would you take? And Leon seemed like the more straight up, but I love the zapping system. It was so unique, so different, still not really something that is done too often anymore. Resident Evil 2 is one of the most important games of all time. Resident Evil 3, more the same. I loved the different paths you could take. Nemesis was a huge step up from Tyrant as far as presence and as far as like importance in the story and kind of the gameplay feel. This is where the series starts to move a little bit more towards action. You can feel that it's changing just a little bit. And then of course, Resident Evil 4. Now, I've never played Resident Evil 4. I know, well, actually I have, but okay, I can't be losing the crowd already. So I'll just say I haven't finished Resident Evil 4. I plan to, and I would love to do a nostalgia on that. So if you guys are into that, let me know. Now, Resident Evil 5 gets shit on a lot for reasons that I understand, but also as far as cooperative play, Resident Evil 5 is magical. I feel like don't play this game alone. It would suck alone. But with friends, Resident Evil 5 slaps, dude. So good, so good. And Mercenaries will be hours of fun. 6 never played. 7 and 8 are return to form. Those damn 7 was so fucking good until it wasn't. I hated when the mole monsters showed up, and like that whole last segment of the game really dragged. Unfortunately, that really pulls it down for me, but those first probably 4, 5, 6 hours stand up against pretty much anything in the horror genre. 8 was great. Some of the most fun and interesting mechanics that the series has had. The first person shift was really beneficial. So all that to say, what else is there to even say about Resident Evil? Obviously it belongs in S tier. One of the most important, impactful game series of all time. And even the shit that's bad kind of has some redeeming qualities here and there. I mean, like, for instance, the movies. Absolutely, most of them are dog shit, but just having video game movies like that is something that once they break through, you just know like this series is bigger than anything else. So while the series might not always be scary, it's always at the top of any good list of horror games. All right, next up, this might surprise you guys because I'm a little bit of a PlayStation fella, but I've never played any Silent Hill, any of them. I played a demo on the PlayStation 1 of the first Silent Hill. I thought it was really cool. I really wanted to give it a go, but like, I just never got them. And I don't know why exactly. I liked the mechanics, but I think being a Resident Evil guy, it just didn't 100% jive with me enough at that age to really go after and explore them more. So I'm really hyped for this remake. It looks incredible. So looking forward to that. Next up, we have Alone in the Dark. Also a game that I have never played. Always thought the series looked really cool. If you guys have any games for these series that I haven't played, let me know where I should start. And maybe if I get enough votes for one specific game on this video, I'll end the month with that game. Now, another game that I haven't played at all Why am I even doing this, man? Why am I even here? Like, clearly I'm not a horror fan, but anyway, Clock Tower, another game that I'm super excited to see getting a remake. I remember seeing the SNES game and thinking it was so dope. I always wanted to play, and I went on this kind of rabbit hole down watching a bunch of videos about this series. So looking forward to finally getting to play the original Clock Tower. Fatal Frame, also a series that I've been really interested in. See, the issue with a lot of these horror games that I'm pulling up outside of like Silent Hill is that most of them lived in kind of the PS2, PS3 era a little bit, which a lot of those games are sort of trapped in limbo. And I feel like many of the Fatal Frame games are just like that too. So I'm gonna put that right where it belongs. Manhunt. Now this is a series that I did play and I really wish would come back. Manhunt is basically Hitman meets Saw and the fucked up mind state of the Rockstar folks. Now, as an edgelord 15-year-old, Manhunt was the sickest. Like, I just loved, you could walk up with the chicken wire and then blood would be all up in the screen, and I was just like, yeah, testosterone, right? I loved how it was kind of like a sandbox. You were trying to stealth around, and if I recall correctly, the first game was about you trying to get out of prison, breaking out, and there was a manhunt. I played the second one, don't remember as much about it, but I think it was kind of like bigger and bolder, just kind of more of the same. And they were really fun. And we're gonna go ahead and put Manhunt in bloody good. I'm gonna say it's bloody good. I think it's a bit forgotten. It has been kind of lost to time a little bit as a series. I'd love to see them bring it back, either a remaster or kind of re-envisioning of what that series could be, because the gore, the violence was just so visceral and feels like it could be almost Terrifier levels now in 2024. So bring back Manhunt, Rockstar, please. We deserve it. All right, next up we have Amnesia, another series that I haven't played. Oh, Dead Space. Now, what do I say about Dead Space? Whew. I remember playing the first Dead Space probably more than any other horror game, and I remember being fucking terrified. The USS Ishimura is emblazoned in my brain. The first game was just so unique, so incredible. The fact that you had this engineer, right? Just a normal dude, and then he would refashion engineering weapons to fight these iconic enemies in the necromorphs, and having to cut off the limbs because you're so used to zombies, right? You headshot a zombie, but not a necromorph. You shoot its head off and it oftentimes would go crazier. So that subversion was so cool, especially before it was well known. Dead Space 1, classic. Dead Space 2, even more classic, but it's almost like the Resident Evil 4 of the series in a way to me, because it had this perfect balance of action and kind of visceral violence and headiness. Dead Space 3 is something I've never played, and I feel like I probably never will unless people really start to come around on it. Kind of like how they have on Resident Evil 6 a little bit. Seems like that game's starting to get a little more love than it used to. But even the offshoot games, I loved Dead Space Extraction, the on-rail shooter. I just recently watched A Quiet Place Day One, and it gave me kind of a similar feel to Extraction, and how it's just more about what it would be like to be a part of this, what it would be like to have that start, and for you to feel that normalcy change into just pure terror. Dead Space, dog, 100% going up in spooky. S tier, even when it falters with stuff like Dead Space 3 from what I've heard. 1 and 2 alone put it in the very top tier, in my opinion. At worst, I would put it A tier, but to me, it's definitely S tier. Period. Next up, we have Dino Crisis. This might surprise you guys too, as a PlayStation fella. Never played it. Keep seeing people hoping that it gets a remake. and a remaster or whatever, and I'm right there with you, because I would love to finally get to play this game. So come on, Capcom, you're bringing back all these fighting games, all these other things. Give us a Dino Crisis collection, and I'll finally get to play them. I would love to do a nostalgia on them, because I always found them super interesting, and I would just love the opportunity to finally play those. Now, Fear Effect, I played a demo of, and I always thought they were super cool. I really loved that look, and I remember all the ads in magazines and stuff, because that was the era where sexy was in, and that the lead character, they would always have her in these kind of more like risque ads. And I remember being, 11, 12, being like, this game looks fun. There's one particular scene of her in a towel, and I remember they use that all the time in all of the publications to kind of reel you in. And I loved the look, and it had a real unique kind of style to it that I feel like I need to explore. So if Fear Effect ever gets a remake or a remaster, that one seems less likely, right? It just seems like it's kind of lost to time. But yeah, God, I have a lot. I should have vetted these even further. I actually took out a bunch, and that's kind of why this looks so crazy, because I had to hide a bunch. So, but I still wanted to talk about games that even I hadn't played, because I remember a lot of these, and I think because I was so into role-playing games at the time, it was just I didn't have as much time for survival horror, and a lot of these games are just trapped. Galarians is another one that I recall the ads for and everything, but never played. Thought it looked real cool. God damn, this is gonna just be mostly haven't played. Sorry guys, maybe I'll cut some of this shit out. House of the Dead, classic series, kind of fell off. Most of them are on rail shooters, but I remember like Typing of the Dead. That was always really fun to play in high school, to teach yourself how to type. And honestly, that's a big reason why I am such a good typist. I love that game. They were kind of like throwaways. I never played any of the home versions, so that might be where I'm kind of losing it. I know the Dreamcast versions were really kind of loved, but playing just the on-rail shooters in arcades, playing Typing of the Dead, honestly, for Typing of the Dead alone, you know what? Bloody good. Not as good as Manhunt, but Typing of the Dead was kind of a formative game alone, and it was a lot of fun in movie theaters while you're kind of waiting on your parents to pick you up. That was always a good time. So we'll put House of the Dead in bloody good. Koudelka is a game that I've also gone down a weird rabbit hole with, and always thought it was like a super cool series that I wish that I could play, and I haven't played it. So we'll go ahead and put Koudelka over there. Ooh, now Onimusha. This is a game series that I would absolutely love for Capcom to bring back. 1, 2, and 3, I played them all a lot, especially the second one. I really loved the second one. The third one was great because it had that French actor. I'm blanking on his name. I just loved the fusion of kind of like feudal Japan, and then with later ones like modern stuff, plus like the Oni and these horror themes. I feel like it probably just didn't do well. It almost felt like the cross section for Capcom of Resident Evil and Devil May Cry. It probably didn't do as well as it could have, because it had that sort of weird, mixture of genres that maybe the average person couldn't really get their brain wrapped around. But I loved Onimusha. We're gonna go with alarming on that one. And yeah, I absolutely love Onimusha. Bring it back, Capcom. Do a collection for that. Just keep putting out collections. Honestly, we're at the point in gaming where I just am totally down with collections. I'm down with all that shit. Like just keep giving me some of the classics that I can replay with a nice new coat of paint, and don't overdo it. Obviously, don't overdo it. But Anyway, let's keep this moving along. Parasite Eve. I've actually only played the first one. I know the second one changed the whole formula a lot and is sort of a black sheep, though Third Birthday might be even more, but I think they lost the naming rights to Parasite Eve at that point. But the first one, man, incredible. Might not hold up as well because it had some really weird conventions. I will say that. But at the time, Parasite Eve was one of my favorite Squaresoft games. I feel like it is a little forgotten at time, but people keep it alive with posts and talking about it. I just feel like because of the fact that it was based on a book that I don't believe Squaresoft can still access, I don't think we're going to get a new Parasite Eve anytime soon. But with Parasite Eve 1 alone, we're going to have to put that in A tier. I think it's better than Onimusha, but yeah, iconic in a way, but because it only had one game that really, I think, stands in the zeitgeist and two other games that kind of stand there for the wrong reasons, yeah, we're gonna have to put Parasite Eve in A tier. Alan Wake. I've only played the first game. Obviously, if you've been around the channel for a while, you know that I have a Alan Wake video that you can check out here. But Alan Wake was so much fun. I really enjoyed it. I love kind of the campy Twin Peaks feel of Alan Wake. It's really kind of out there, and while the combat was a little lacking in the first one, everything else around it, the atmosphere, the whole vibe, the weird like meta aspects that they love, that Remedy just loves to bring in, really did a lot to make this game memorable. So yeah, let me talk about the second game. I started the second game. I had intentions on reviewing it for the channel, but I just never finished it. There's only been 2 Alan Wakes, so based on just the first one, I'm gonna put this one in bloody good. I'm gonna say it's definitely better than House of the Dead. I think it's better than Manhunt 2. I'm gonna put that at the front of bloody good. Alien Isolation is a game that I started it. I know this game is beloved and it gets a lot of praise, and I think it's definitely correct. I feel like it's a game though that I've seen people say can be really frustrating, and because of that, I wasn't in the right mental place to really get into it. Haven't finished /played because that's true, and I really feel like if I gave it a second try, I would love it, or even maybe a third try, because that's just one of those games that you have to be in the right place to really get into and really enjoy, because being chased by the xenomorph was so harrowing, and the feeling is unlike really any game that I've experienced. I got a few hours in and got stuck at this first like major sticking point and just bounced off of it. But I don't think it was the game's fault. It was just I needed to be ready to really dive into that. Next up, we have A Plague's Tale. I have played the first one, haven't played the second one. I got like 90% into the first one, and something about it, the gameplay was good. I really actually loved the characters, I loved the story, I loved the graphics and the setting, but I don't know, the late game gameplay, like it was like this Last of Us almost, but where you're really only sneaking, and something about that, just as I got further along, I just felt the game got more complicated in a way that really wasn't for me. So I didn't finish it. I haven't played the second one yet, but I know it's beautiful. They're gorgeous looking games. They're incredible to look at. I think this might be my first candy corn. I'm sure people won't agree on that one. Maybe they will, but I don't know. It was a good game, but felt pretty, middle of the ground for your boy. BioShock. I had to leave this one in there because I have not played BioShock, though I did start the first one. I really was loving it. I don't want to put content out that is just solely for the fact that I can say that I did it. BioShock was a lot of fun. I was playing the remaster and love the storyline, love the characters, love the atmosphere. I'm not typically a first person shooter guy, so that's part of it. I don't know, the combat wasn't exactly jiving with me 100%. I do definitely want to cover BioShock one day, because I do believe it's an incredible game series, especially as it gets further along. I really feel like Infinite will speak to me, though. That one seems like more polarizing. That's the interesting thing about these game series. The further along that we get, it seems like some games get a little bit more polarizing throughout the years, and then some kind of flip. You know, they go from people thinking they suck to like, oh, this is actually a really great game. So I'm gonna throw BioShock in. Haven't played. Oh, here comes a rant. Bloodborne literally saved my love for gaming. Saved it. Without Bloodborne, I might not be sitting here. If you have been around the channel for a while, you know I took basically the 7th generation off. Bloodborne was the game that got me back into gaming. And funnily enough, I completely bounced off of it for about 6-7 months. I got maybe 15 hours in, got stuck on a boss. I can't remember exactly the boss, but I was out of blood vials. I was getting sick of running back and forth getting blood vials. And I said, you know what, fuck it. I'm done with this game. I put it down for about half a year. Finally picked it back up. And since then, I beat it 3 or 4 times. Definitely a top 10 favorite game
of all time for me, all time.
Bloodborne is Miyazaki's perfection. Everybody can talk about Elden Ring. Everybody can talk about their favorite. To me, Bloodborne is the perfection of the formula that hasn't quite been topped yet. Bloodborne doesn't even need more preamble than that. It is probably my 8th or 9th favorite game of all time, and just one of the most iconic horror game looks, with the hunter, with the enemies and the madness going on. And come on, probably the best DLC that I've ever played. So Bloodborne, you know what? Ooh, I'm gonna put that ahead of Resident Evil and Dead Space for me. Bloodborne, because like I said, it literally saved my love of gaming. Without it, I probably wouldn't have this channel. So it's got to be at the very top of S tier. Whew, you want to get on another rant. So Castlevania obviously is a game series that's almost spanned 40 years at this point. I'm not going to go over every single Castlevania and the ones that I really love and the ones that there's been 3D ones, there's been 2D, there's been everything in between. Castlevania's had such a storied and unique history that it's impossible to really hit all of them. But Symphony of the Night is one of my all-time favorite games, probably top 5 all-time favorite games, that alone. Plus the 3D games get hated on, but they were really good. The PlayStation 2 ones, like even Lords of Shadow was pretty good. It kind of lost the plot a little bit. I have the DS collection, and I thought about playing that for the channel to round out the month. So if you're into that, maybe let me know. Symphony of the Night is one of the most important games, period, but also one of the most important games in my life. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that between Resident Evil and Dead Space. I'm gonna leave Resident Evil above it only because I feel like Castlevania as a horror series and importance in my overall development is not as high up as Resident Evil, even though Symphony of the Night, as far as I'm concerned, is above any single Resident Evil. I think the breadth of what Resident Evil accomplished is still far enough ahead in the horror space, because Castlevania is not exactly a horror game, that Resident Evil's above it. Now, that would be a really cool idea. Castlevania as a true horror game, like where you're maybe not a Belmont or Alucard or somebody that can really fight, but somebody that has to like try to sneak around the castle and stuff. Go ahead and write that down, and if Konami makes it, make sure you post a clip of this video because they stole it from me. Anyway, Control. I'm gonna go ahead and put Control. I got about 8 or 9 hours into it, so I can't exactly say haven't played, but I haven't finished. I should finish it, but something about it just didn't really resonate too heavily with me yet. Darkest Dungeon. I've tried to start this probably 3 or 4 times and it keeps fucking killing me. It's so hard. Gonna also put that one in haven't finished. Days Gone. I started it, got a few hours in. I don't know. It felt kind of like off-brand Last of Us, so I feel like that's probably not fair to it, but we're gonna go ahead and put that in haven't finished as well. Dead Rising, another game that just got a remaster and that is getting some good shit. Definitely need to check the remasters out, see if it's any good. Ooh boy, you want to talk about a game series that is pivotal. It's so funny to think about Devil May Cry originating as a Resident Evil game, but the more you kind of ponder it, with 4 in development and like that whole saga of how it split off and ended up being its own thing, makes a whole lot of sense. DMC 3 still stands as probably one of my top 20 favorite games of all time. DMC 2 sucks. DMC 1 was really iconic, but it's kind of hard to play now. My brother absolutely loved 4. I used to love watching him do his combos and stuff in 4. He like got really good at 4, but I didn't play it. That was kind of his thing. And then 5 is sick. I really need to play that. But between just 1 and 3, we don't talk about 2. God, that game sucked. Like the fact that characters like Lucia just never returned, that just lets you know that Capcom already knew that it was terrible. DMC, I'm gonna put that at the front of amazing. I don't know. 3 alone might put it higher, but that one's tough. I just don't want everything in S tier that I played, but that's a little bit how it feels. I would say that DMC is right there. Oh, and DMC, the actual game, DMC, gets more hate than it should. A lot of fun. One of the better combat systems in the series, but I understand people hated how they had changed Dante. So Five Nights at Freddy's, I actually grabbed this. It wasn't on this pre-made tier list because I feel like it's so important in the modern horror game landscape that I had to put it on there. Even though I haven't played it, I have one of them on PSN. So that could be another one to vote for if you really love Five Nights at Freddy's. I haven't played Gears of War because I've never even owned an Xbox. So I also left that on there because I had to shout that out that I am an Xbox. What's the opposite of a fanboy? Nah, that isn't true. I actually respect the Xbox. I thought about getting an Xbox just to kind of explore all that whole side. It's almost like finding out that you have a whole other side to your family, which definitely has never happened to me. Maybe Microsoft will see this and they'll gift me one. I don't know. Ooh-wee, The Last of Us. Now, this feels like the most recent, modern, iconic horror series, right? Like, the first one, I didn't play until the remaster on my PlayStation 4, since, like I said, I kind of skipped the generation of consoles a little bit. The Last of Us 1 and 2. 2 is like really polarizing, but I always say this. If Joel was, spoilers, if Joel was such a piece of shit like he was, you don't think someone wanted to kill him? I mean, what he did at the end of the first one was deplorable. The fact that The Last of Us 2 had the balls to be that realistic and to really drive the point home of what he did, and he had to suffer the consequences. Consequences are real, people. Anyway, rant aside, The Last of Us is iconic for so many reasons. Come on, that has to be. Now, that's definitely S tier. I'm going to put that behind Castlevania, but in front of Dead Space. Not a whole lot more to say about The Last of Us. 1 and 2 are really incredible. I love 2. I felt like that's one of those games that you play once and then you never play again because it really shook me to the core. And I know Abby's polarizing, Joel's death was polarizing, but it felt like the natural progression of something this tragic. Also, the opening scene of the first one, whoo-wee. It helps you really put yourself into the mindset of Joel as he got closer to Ellie and wanted to do nothing but protector. His character arc was incredible, and I feel like the way 2 started was exactly what the series needed, even though people hated it at the time. I think hopefully The Last of Us 2 gets more love the further that we get away from it. But why are we getting another remaster? Like, come on. Little Nightmares. I actually own both 1 and 2. Haven't played them though, so we're gonna throw that up there. Metro Exodus. I actually started Exodus, but haven't finished it, so I'm gonna throw that in there as well. Now, The Order 1886 is a game that I feel like gets hated on for some of the right reasons, but then also for some of the wrong ones. I got The Order 1886 on a steep sale. $4.99. And for $4.99, incredible game. I loved the characters. I loved a lot of the combat system, not all of it. I loved the setting. It was a very unique idea. It gets a lot of hate because it should not have been a full price game. That I will say. I think for the right price at $39 or something like that, it would have been perfect. And I feel like we could have maybe had a sequel if it was more of a proof of concept type of scenario. The repeating of the same boss really got old. That one stealth section that basically had the hedges, and because the game was letterboxed, like you literally could not see the enemies. It was crazy. It was one of the best looking PlayStation 4 games out there. Shame that it'll never get a sequel probably, because I think with the right tweaks, The Order 1886 2 would have been incredible, or The Order 1887 or whatever the fuck they would have called it. Anyway, I'm gonna put this one in candy corn. I can understand that it kind of is lacking, but it still is one of the best looking PlayStation 4 games out there. Shame that it'll never get a sequel probably, because I think with the right tweaks, The Order 1886 2 would have been incredible, or The Order 1887 or whatever the fuck they would have called it. I'm gonna put this one in candy corn. I can understand that it kind of is lacking, but that it was really good for what it was. It wasn't worth the money they were asking for. And then finally, we're gonna talk about Until Dawn, but we're also gonna make that about the Dark Picture anthologies as well. Until Dawn is getting a remake that should be out any day now, and it was probably the first game like this that I ever played, and I love Until Dawn. It's one of those games that you can go back to and play every year. The gameplay is fine, right? It's mostly walking and then QTEs, but it's not about the gameplay. It's about the characters and the decisions that you make and kind of the insanity of it all. What it's really good at is making you have that slasher feel. And as you get closer to the mystery of the game, you're like, oh shit. Some of the death scenes are really, really inventive, especially when you make really dumb decisions. I'm really excited to see what the remake brings and how it changes the series and how it changes the gameplay up. Some of the anthology games are really, really, really good, and then others not so good. House of Ashes was probably my favorite out of those. The most recent one I actually was playing on stream and didn't love. I stopped playing it. The Little Hope was pretty solid. I honestly loved The Quarry. I know that one gets a little bit of lack of love, but I thought it was really cool. I liked the 80s vibe, and of course having that bigger budget again made it feel really more like Until Dawn than some of the other shorter, more succinct Dark Picture Anthologies games. Really excited always when I see a new game from them because they can be a little hit or miss, a little dicey, but when they're fucking on. Yeah. I think it's candy. Well, no. That's not fair. We're going to put this in between there. If I was only talking about their very, very best games, I would probably put it in A, like towards the back. But if we're looking at the entire breadth of stuff, games I bounced off of, games that I thought were just okay, like Man of Medan was okay. Little Hope was a bit better if I'm recalling. See, the fact that I'm kind of mixing those, the quality of those two up shows you that they weren't really incredible. I feel like one was definitely better than the other, but I can't really remember which is which. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that in bloody good. Now, if you enjoyed this horror game tier list, maybe click on my indie game tier list to hear some absolutely batshit insane takes that got me in some hot water with some folks. So I appreciate you guys as always. Peace.